prior to getting to the meat of all this, I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. Uh, the last time we did this was just about 2 months ago.
Yeah, right at the outset of when things were ramping up for shelter in place because of COVID.
And the numbers we talked about, it basically it exceeded our relatively optimistic. I know we talked about 40,000 people dying. And we
I don't
talked,
remember what the numbers were, but
but we're way past that number now. We're nearly 50% past that. I know we also talked about a doomsday scenario where like you had millions of people dying,
right.
and we also talked about just like the weirdness that we expected. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Is it as weird as you thought it would be?
That's a good question. It doesn't feel like it, but I wonder when we're going to start feeling that it might even be weirder than or more difficult. It hasn't felt all that strange. It's been an adjustment. A lot of it's been really enjoyable. There have been many good things that I've seen come of it, but again, we're only 8 weeks or something into this, so let's just hold our breath and reserve judgment and enjoy the parts that are enjoyable while we can, and we'll see.
Well, let's talk about the enjoyable parts. What are you really enjoying?
Well, I'm a music writer, and by the way, I'm not an author. I haven't published any books. But
Oh, you'll
and
get
I
there.
don't. What's that?
You'll
Thank
get
you.
there. You'll get there.
And I don't mind that you call me a critic. In fact, I prefer that you prefer that term. I think it's funny. And you call me a cultural critic, which is even more loathsome to me. But I think it's really funny that you can. I'm not big on like. You can identify me however you think is right. I'm fine with that. I write about music, and I haven't gotten the opportunities are drying up to do that, but that doesn't mean I haven't been listening to tons of music and catching up on reading and streaming and feeling like just slowing down from. I had a really easy job, but even just slowing down from being on this constant calendar or timetable, that's just been really nice, and focusing on quality of time, quality time with my daughter and with others, even if it's just on the phone or on Zoom or whatever, Google Hangouts or whatever. So yeah.
And I'm also wondering. Well, I guess let me contribute to that a bit. I think it's been a little bit weirder than I thought it would be.
Okay.
I think especially at this point, I've been working at home basically for the last 2 months, for the most part, and I've done that before, but never with this type of work. I'm a reporter, for those who don't know. And one of the things that I really enjoy about my work is that I get to go a bunch of different places. I get to talk to a bunch of different people and, look people in the eye and ask them questions. Sometimes really uncomfortable questions. And, the sort of like kinetic energy and then like the movement of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, aside from 2 other days during this period, today, strangely enough, being one of them, so 3 days total, I've been working out of my house, my apartment, which is pretty small. And I haven't been seeing a whole lot of people. which you're not supposed to. You obviously you got a kid, so that's a little bit different. But
I have a child. Yes,
a child, a child. What's the difference between kid and child? Help me.
I have a kid. I have a kid, not kids. I thought you said kids.
Yeah, I said a kid, a kid.
Okay, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So like when I can see like if I had a child, I think, and I wasn't living with that kid, I would go out of my way to see that kid. I think
Hmm.
so. So I would totally be in the same boat. Um, but other than that, I've talked with friends in a number of different ways, but it's different than the in person conversation thing, and it's very very. I don't know. There's something missing from it.
Mm.
You know, you can still get laughs and you can still look people in the eye with all the video conferencing. You know, I've had Zoom happy hours. I've you know my and my coworkers and I have all we're making weird videos for each other and trying to like keep the spirit light. But there's something different about like today, for example, just going into a place, even if it's an empty place, and sitting at a place and looking, and seeing people who are kind of mission driven and they're trying to
Mm.
get their thing done. And that's not every workplace isn't like that. A lot of the workplaces I've had aren't like that. Where it's a lot of it's not that people aren't working, it's just that it's not as intense a workplace in most cases.
Hmm.
But I felt a sincere loss during this period.
Hmm. Um, so it sounds like you miss the kind of the charge you get as a reporter, being on the scene, or even just sit on the scene, meaning sitting across from somebody or sitting across from your coworkers at like a staff meeting or something, right? Is that kind of what you're saying? That
Yeah, and it's not necessarily. I don't think I necessarily need that every day. Like like if it were half and half, I think I'd be okay. Like let's say half at home and half in an actual workplace. I think I'd be quite fine with that. But having none of that
mm,
in knowing that it's there is really weird for me.
mm. Well, I've been working at home for like the last 18 years, so um, and that's not always an efficient system, and it's not and there have been many times where I could have used a good, hey, show up here at at this structured time, but so aside from not being able to see people as much, I've just found that there's a lot more richness in the communication forms that are available, and there have been a few different interactions or sets of interactions, including with my daughter initially when I was self quarantining, and we were video chatting several times a day. It's just like pretty much every interaction I've had has been enhanced in some way, has been more than what I expected, um, and has added to whatever relationship with that person would be. So, in a lot of ways, for me, the whole COVID thing has has added more to my life, at least so far. Excuse me.
And I think I could speak to the positives also. Like I think there's been like conversations that I've had with people that typically would not be as long as they are.
Hmm.
And I've noticed that both in terms of work conversations, and I've noticed that in terms of personal conversations, where like that typical half hour phone call becomes an hour or hour plus.
Hmm.
Um, and I uh, and things have both sped up and slowed down.
Mm.
Um, and when I say sped up and slowed down, uh, someone's on the other line. Okay. When I say both sped up and slowed down, I mean, and a lot of people have talked about the blurry feeling of this whole period,
Mm.
and not being able to tell days apart, and I've definitely experienced that. I've also had weeks go like in a blink.
Mm.
And the fact that this is the middle of May now is just kind of bizarre to me.
Mm.
Not not just
Right.
because our weird weather here in Western New York, but just overall the fact that like my birthday is on I think Thursday. I think so. Is it the fourth? Yeah, it's the 14th. The 14th is Thursday. I'm not sure if it's Thursday or is it Friday. Is it what day is this? This is the 11th. Okay.
Today's Monday the 11th.
Okay, so it's Thursday. So yeah, like the fact that this is like that week is a really really weird thing to me at the moment. It just doesn't feel like the weight of the weeks haven't been heavy, even if the content of them, the conversations about them have been.
Interesting.
Um,
So you're feeling a little sort of lost in time, like time isn't defined for you right
yeah.
now.
Well, my life, as you were saying, my life is different than yours, and that your life is. It's not that it's not regimented; it's regimented in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think yeah. So I'd certainly say that was an apt description. Um, so it kind of I found myself like I watched the first 8 hours of The Last Dance in one
Which
sitting.
I'm okay. Wow. So you binged? Wow. Okay. Because obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, you couldn't binge watch the whole thing because they released 2 episodes per Sunday for a total of 10 over 5 Sundays, right? So this Sunday, as we're taping this, is going to be the last one with new episodes.
Yeah, and I didn't notice at the time, like just like flew by. I just was like, I'm just here now, and I don't usually do that with Netflix like a lot of people do. But this was a moment where like I could just do that because just like I time is a little bit weird at the moment.
Right. We're all in kind of a state of suspended animation right now. Well, not all, but a lot of us who aren't, and you are an essential worker, but being in media, but a lot of us who don't still, anybody who doesn't, who no longer has to go show up to where they would have shown up for work prior to this is just kind of floating, which I hear you. I've always thought that's a very, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. And this is interesting because I know you said that you're not a big proponent of holidays, and you're not big on the idea that Sundays in retail should be any less than any other day, things like that. And I hope I'm not misquoting you on that.
No.
But
I don't like Christmas. I'm a little less angry about it than I was, but I don't really like it. Maybe I will someday. People say when you have a child like you do, like you start to see things a little bit different. Maybe I'll get there. Um,
but
um,
you're also not big on. You don't want Sundays to feel different than the rest of the week. I remember you saying.
well, except during football season. During
Okay,
football season,
so
I'm
you're
cool with
switching.
it.
Okay, because you don't. Because so that's interesting to me that you would prefer not to have these distinctions, but now that we're in a place where we don't have as much distinction, it's bothering you, which is interesting. It's like you want a little
Um,
more distinction than what we have.
more distinction than we have, but not as much as we had.
Okay, right. So similarly, I feel like slowing down has been, for the most part, good. Again, I'm super lucky. I knock wood. I'm blessed to say, like, I don't know anybody who's died from this. It hasn't reached close to home. My child is safe. I, so far, am safe. Pretty much everybody I know is. So it's just afforded me an opportunity to just like to just chill out more. And internally, I mean, in terms of like the stress of always being aware of what time it is and what day of the week it is. And interestingly enough, we're flipped because I like those distinctions. I like each day feel different. I remember you and I talking about this. I like how the weeks are punctuated by weekends, and but I am seeing that, okay, maybe a little less of that is good, but going halfway to where we were would be a nice medium, I would say.
And even that I'd agree on. Like somewhere in the middle, definitely is where I would be um, if I had my druthers.